Göbekli Tepe. Ever heard of that name? It's this cool Neolithic archaeological spot in Turkey, hanging out in the southeastern Anatolia region. Now, the mainstream story says that people were living there from about 9500 to 8000 BCE, back in the pre-pottery Neolithic days. But according to researcher Graham Hancock, this place could be way older, like hitting the scene 12,000 years ago. What makes Göbekli Tepe a big deal? Imagine massive stone pillars chilling in these gigantic circular setups. Some people even claim that these might be the oldest megaliths globally, though others throw Nabta Playa's stone circles in the Nubian desert into the debate. These pillars are like ancient art galleries, covered in anthropomorphic stuff, clothing, and carvings of wild animals. It's like a peek into prehistoric religion and the fancy iconography of the time. So, cool proof that there were some pretty advanced civilizations way back then. But let's put Göbekli Tepe on hold for a bit, because this video is not about Göbekli Tepe, but the Great Sphinx. Now you may be wondering, why talk about it? Well, according to Graham Hancock, Göbekli Tepe's existence is like the smoking gun saying, hey, the Great Sphinx might be much older than we give it credit for.
When Robert Schoch and let's not forget John Anthony West. John Anthony West, and I know you had him on his show before he passed. John Anthony West was the first person to suggest that there should be a huge question mark over the Sphinx, that the erosion patterns on the Sphinx suggest it was much older than Egyptologists said, and maybe 12,000 years old. And at that time, the response of Egyptology was, rubbish. The Sphinx can't possibly be 12,000 years old because there's no other megalithic monument anywhere in the world that's anywhere like 12,000 years old. Well, that got blown out of the water completely, forever, by the discovery of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which isn't even that far from Egypt. Göbekli Tepe, 11,600 years old, a giant megalithic site. My goodness, if you can make Göbekli Tepe, you can make the Sphinx. It adds hugely to the credibility of Robert Schoch's argument.
Now, the Sphinx, hanging out in Giza, Egypt, surrounded by pyramids, is a big deal in Kemet's symbolism. To me, that's probably, with the pyramids, the strongest symbol of that African civilization. But have you noticed that this huge statue doesn't have a nose? That detail sparks all sorts of wild theories about where it went and what it's there for, as we just saw. So, today we will chat about the Sphinx and, more importantly, dive into one of the most heated debates about this mysterious monument. When and how did it lose its nose? There are many theories on the subject, and one of them involves Napoleon Bonaparte, who is said to be responsible for its destruction. So by the end of this video, you'll know everything about what really happened to the Sphinx. I will tell you the truth that most people ignore. And talking about truth, have you heard of my African icons? Here is a quick message from the sponsor of our video. Hey there, YouTube family. Before starting the video, I've got something special to share with you today. If you're a parent, guardian, or educator looking for an awesome way to educate your little ones about the rich history of Africa, then listen up. Our video today is proudly sponsored by My African Icons, a series of children's books dedicated to empower the next generation with stories that'll leave a lasting impact. My African Icons specializes in children's books about African history, culture, and achievements. The books are beautifully illustrated and written in a way that's both entertaining and educational. You'll find tales of great African leaders, innovators, and incredible historical events. These books are perfect for bedtime stories, classroom lessons, or just quality bonding time. And the best part? They're tailored to inspire your kids and boost their self-esteem. So, if you're ready to take your loved ones on an unforgettable journey through the vibrant history of Africa, get your copies of My African Icons and more today. Chapter 1: The Subject. For those unfamiliar with the Great Sphinx, let me give you a brief overview. Situated on the Giza Plateau in Egypt, just a stone's throw from Cairo, the Great Sphinx commands attention with its majestic presence. This enigmatic monument shares the plateau with the globally acclaimed pyramids, including the enduring wonder of the ancient world, the Pyramid of Khufu. The term Sphinx traces its roots back to a Greek word used by ancient travelers. On the flip side, in Arabic, the Giza Sphinx has been known since the Middle Ages as Abu al-Hol, which translates to the Father of Terror. Curiously, the ancient Egyptians left no trace of what they called this colossal statue during its construction, leaving modern scholars without contemporary insights. However, a wealth of data surrounds this iconic structure. Impressively, the statue measures approximately 66 feet in height, 240 feet in length, and 46 feet in width. It's by far the largest known sphinx in Kemet. Intriguingly, the body's disproportionate size compared to the head may be attributed to architects' concerns about the fragility of a properly proportioned head. As we delve into the subject further in the video, alternative theories about this peculiar aspect will be explored, so be sure to watch until the end. Notably, natural cracks adorn the Sphinx's body, hinting at a certain fragility, leading to ancient renovations and reinforcement efforts. Carved directly from the rocky base of a quarry that once supplied blocks for the construction of the pyramids of Khufu and Khafre, the Sphinx's paws were meticulously crafted using masonry and attached to the rest of the body. This monumental statue uniquely depicts a lion with a human head, standing as one of the oldest sphinxes in Egyptian history. Adorning the Sphinx's head is a nemes, a regal crown fashioned from colorful fabric. Complementing this regal attire is an uraeus, an upright cobra symbolizing protection against potential threats. A fascinating historical tidbit often overlooked is the discovery of fragments from a false beard destroyed by a cannon shot in the 14th century. Initially mistaken for the Sphinx's nose, these fragments are now housed in the British Museum, adding another layer to the rich tapestry of the Sphinx's storied existence. Chapter 2: Genesis. Unlocking the mystery behind the patron of the Sphinx stands as one of the hottest debates among Egyptologists and enthusiasts. The burning question: who envisioned and commissioned such a colossal statue? Opinions diverge, with some attributing the Sphinx to Khufu, others to Khafre, and a few even proposing an even earlier origin. Alright, so here's the deal. While everyone is debating which pharaoh built the Sphinx, the mainstream Egyptologist crew agrees on one thing: they crafted that bad boy during the 4th dynasty, around 2600 to 2500 BCE. So, in the mix, we've got Khufu, his right-hand man Djedefre, and his other son Khafre. Each pharaoh has their cheerleaders. The Djedefre theory gains traction with Vasil Dobrev's backing, proposing that the king either commissioned or restored the Sphinx in homage to his father Khufu. But there is an issue with that theory. Djedefre's pyramid isn't in Giza but at Abu Raesh, a bit farther. So, it seems unlikely this pharaoh would commission a monumental statue far from his burial grounds, even to honor his predecessor. So, it boils down to Khufu and Khafre. To decipher the Sphinx's allegiance, researchers dive into a melting pot of clues, blending art history, architecture, and even geology. Experts like Eugene Warmenball and Rainer Stadelman underscore the facial features: square face, prominent brow ridge, protruding ears, linking the Sphinx more to Khufu than Khafre. The same tale unfolds in the Sphinx's attire. The nemes headdress mirrors those from the early 4th dynasty, Khufu's heyday, more than his successors. Likewise, no headband graces the Sphinx or Khufu's statues, while all of Khafre's statues sport one. And that beard we chatted about earlier, not Khufu's style, likely added in the New Kingdom, almost 1,200 years later. Though not a sure bet, it often sways those leaning towards Khufu over his son. Back in 1992, a crew of archaeologists thought, let's settle the score on the Sphinx's face, and brought in Detective Frank Domingo, an NYPD pro with 2 decades in facial recognition. Here's the lowdown from Detective Domingo. He straight up said, nope, that Sphinx face ain't rocking Pharaoh Khafre vibes. Instead, he boldly stated that, to him, the Sphinx was unmistakably African. And by African, he wasn't beating around the bush, he meant black African, the kind that some folks have crudely tagged as Negroes.
Look at the prognathism on the Sphinx. That's the extension of the lower portion of the face. You won't find that on the statue of Chephren.
This detective dove into every single details of the face, and what did he find? Well, turns out, most of those features scream sub-Saharan Africa. Exactly what I have been telling you on this platform, proof that the Kemites, the pyramid builders, and pharaohs were the spitting image of indigenous black Africans. Now, rewind to when the Sphinx supposedly got its makeover. Africa, and even the nearby spots like the Middle East and Southern Europe, were rocking a population with deep melanin vibes. Science has backed this up, big time. But here's the kicker, despite all this proof, you've still got other theories floating around. Delving into the Sphinx's origin, scholars like Christian Zivikosh and Mark Lehner point the finger at Khafre as the mastermind behind this colossal creation, a theory widely embraced in Egyptological circles. Their theories are based in the architectural realm, tipping the scales toward Khafre. The Sphinx, perched on the Giza Plateau, seems to fit more into Khafre's funerary complex rather than Khufu's. Adding weight to this notion, the Sphinx temple right in front of the mammoth statue, purpose-shrouded in mystery, is crafted from quarry blocks also used for Khafre's monuments. In a nutshell, the Sphinx takes its stand at the southern edge of a shared quarry, planted on bedrock. Its body gets chiseled from a softer upper layer of stone, while the neck and head rock a tough limestone duo from the third and final layer. These last two layers are like the VIP suppliers for Khafre's temple blocks. So, even though Khufu dipped into this quarry for his funeral gig, the rock strata whispers that the Sphinx might have partied into existence right alongside Khafre's temple. So, they're subtly aiming at Khafre as the chief commissioner of this grand statue. However, when we cross-reference the information we obtained from Detective Domingo, a misalignment emerges. Why? This good old Dr. James Romano, former curator of the Egyptian collection at the Brooklyn Museum, offers a unique perspective. He suggests that the discrepancy may stem from the prevalence of a forged statue of Khafre that is widely showcased. This forgery, he claims, is overly symmetrical, implying that the original visage of Khafre might have indeed matched the Sphinx. However, due to subsequent restorations or forgeries, the disparity has become too pronounced. Yet, in the midst of these intriguing theories, the reality remains elusive. We're still left in the dark. Chapter 3: Controversies. Back in the 1800s, when Kemet was still a mystery and historical timelines were a bit confusing, some Egyptologists began discussing a timeline predating the Fourth Dynasty. They floated the notion that the Sphinx might be a creation from the Archaic or Pre-Dynastic era, a cool 3 centuries before the likes of Khufu and Khafre. However, these are not the only theories, as to this day, independent researchers like Graham Hancock believe that the Sphinx might be even older, much older than the Archaic period, spanning millennia before it. So, these questions and theories remain valid. Many claim to have given them an archaeological boost, thanks to new findings, but we can't be entirely sure. Honestly, the conversation between Graham Hancock and Joe Rogan significantly changed my perception of that narrative. I have always been open to all theories, advocating for listening to everyone because, from personal experience, I know that the mainstream is filled with lies, and our beliefs are not always true. By opening the door and listening to everyone, we gather more data, which can only be positive because with all that data, we open ourselves to all possibilities. After that, we have to fact-check all that data, confront them, and let the best argument win. That's how it works. However, this does not mean that we have to keep the door open forever. When an argument has been thoroughly fact-checked and proven to be irrelevant, it has to be thrown in the trash. It's useless to keep talking about narratives that have been debunked. Some scholars claim to have debunked the theories about the Sphinx, especially those based on torrential rains dating back to a period long before the Fourth Dynasty. They argue that these erosion marks have nothing to do with heavy rains, but are rather related to the sand that has covered the statue several times throughout history, sometimes up to its neck or even entirely. Water could then have entered the sand during rains, but in no way in sufficient quantities to erode the rocky mass of the Sphinx to such an extent. It's also believed that erosion due to water is well documented in Egypt. They claim that it does not indicate a more ancient dating of the Sphinx, as the temple of Menkaure or Mykarinos itself suffered significantly from climatic deterioration. Since this king reigned after Khafre, it clearly indicates that there is no need to go back 6,000 or 7,000 years before our era for a monument to be affected by weathering. But to be honest with you, I still don't believe these facts are enough to completely get rid of other theories. Not that I'm a fan of mysterious theories in general, but there are still numerous things that just don't make sense when we look at ancient civilizations. There are too many things that we still can't explain, things that we know have been hidden. For example, there is evidence that Göbekli Tepe remained unknown for so long because of a cover-up. Graham Hancock claims that the layers covering the site didn't make sense, meaning that some people tried to keep it hidden. And talking about mysteries, here's another mystery linked to the Sphinx that leads us back to the Black African identity of the Kemetic civilization.
In 1997, the Art Bell radio program aired an interview with Richard Hogan regarding the recent discovery of a new room under the pyramids through a secret shaft under the Sphinx. Inside the room was a statue of a black man. This information was suppressed but leaked out through the testimony of an eyewitness guard. Following are excerpts from this program. Notice that the Europeans wrestle with their denial of the Black African truth, even in the face of new undeniable evidence.
What this guard reported was that on October 20th, Farouk El-Baz, the same man who picked the Apollo landing sites on the moon according to the Orion-Sirius connection,
Yes.
and two English-speaking Europeans carrying a large aluminum case entered the Great Pyramid that morning for 3 hours on October 20th. They proceeded to put a robot up the shaft and a camera with a fiber optic connection under the crack in the door. They proceeded to look through to find what was inside a chamber, and there is a chamber back there, according to the story, which is about 3 meters by 2.5 meters in size.
Yes.
There is a statue in this room.
A statue.
Of a black man.
A black man.
Seated, looking up the shaft toward the star Sirius at the meridian crossing.
Wow.
And there is more.
There's more.
Isn't this getting to be interesting?
It is, yes. Now, let's define black. Here's the facts from Jerry in Clovis, California. My teacher, a colleague, told me the Egyptians were very dark Caucasians. I guess this new discovery proves it to be true. They were not black. So, do you want to stick with your description of a black man, or would this be a dark-skinned Egyptian, or is that too close a call to make?
No, the description was a black man.
A black man.
Yeah.
In this excerpt, you can clearly hear a narrative being pushed regarding Kemet, and it is racial. People can't simply accept the fact that black people are intelligent and can build civilizations. These builders must always have Caucasian features. That's why so many people think that the Kemites did not look like regular Africans, despite all the evidence provided on this channel. All anthropological data prove that the indigenous Kemite has a progmathic profile, that their skin is rich in melanin, that their hair is kinky, and that they practice a black African culture. This is reality. However, the media plays with illusions and promotes a reality that does not exist. Chapter 4. Did Napoleon do it? Now let's address the burning question: what happened to the Sphinx's nose? Every single time I have addressed this topic, whether it is in an article, a post, or a video, I have always had someone talking about the nose and how Napoleon blew it up. And seems like this is the main narrative about it. So, get ready guys, because we're about to debunk many notorious urban legends starting with Napoleon. Contrary to popular belief, Napoleon Bonaparte's soldiers and their cannon shots are not the reason behind the Sphinx's nose disappearing. This tale, suggesting a soldier during Napoleon's Egyptian campaign in the late 18th century cannonied the Sphinx, wrecking its nose, is pure fiction. Yes, I know. It may have been a more epic story, but unfortunately that's not what happened. How do we know that? Well, we've got evidence, like drawings from before Napoleon's Egyptian expedition, dating back to 1757, a good 40 years before Bonaparte even set foot in Egypt. While some artworks from the 16th and 17th centuries depict the Sphinx in its entirety, these were created by artists who never set eyes on Egypt and mostly replicated old portraits or unreliable descriptions. We take them with a grain of salt, clearly. So, we see that the nose was already missing prior to Napoleon's entry in that country. The Mamelukes theory. Well, there is another theory linking that act of vandalism to the Mamluks. A non-Arab, ethnically diverse, mostly Turkic, Caucasian, Eastern and Southeastern European, enslaved mercenaries, slave soldiers, and freed slaves who were assigned high-ranking military and administrative duties, serving the ruling Arab and Ottoman dynasties in the Muslim world. They were the military rulers of Egypt for almost 3 centuries, responsible for the country's politics until their definitive defeat in the early 19th century. It was believed that they were the culprits behind the Sphinx's mutilation. However, just like with the French troops, the accusation against the Mamluks turned out to be false, likely a smear campaign to tarnish their reputation and sway public opinion against them. So who did it? Well, in order to truly identify who did it, we have to look for the first time the Sphinx has been seen without his nose. Because that's what completely exonerated the Mamelukes and Napoleon, right? It turns out that in the historical records of the Middle Ages, we encounter writings that already depict the Great Sphinx without its nose. Enter Ahmad al-Makrizi, an Egyptian historian hailing from the 14th and 15th centuries. In his accounts, he highlights the broken nose of the Sphinx and singles out Muhammad Sa'im al-Dar, an iconoclast from the 14th century. According to al-Makrizi, Sa'im al-Dar allegedly mutilated the statue with the intent of dissuading Giza's peasants from venerating what he considered a pagan figure. The historian reports that despite Sa'im al-Dar's actions, the local inhabitants persisted in making offerings to the Sphinx, seeking abundant crops and prosperity. Whether Sa'im al-Dar is the true culprit or not, what remains undeniable is that the Sphinx bid farewell to its nose at least 600 years ago. I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like more content like this, please consider liking, sharing, and supporting our channel. Your support is crucial for the channel's growth. Now, onto the Great Sphinx. What's your take on this story? Did you know that it wasn't Napoleon who did it? Do you think that the mutilation is linked to Muhammad Sa'im al-Dar? Do you believe that racism wasn't part of the motivations behind that action? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching Mr. Imhotep's channel, and see you in the next video.